with Steve Goodwin, head of Goodwin Boxing, and Jordan Foster, social media PR guru. We going with that, Jordan?
I'm not sure I'm having the guru.
Jordan, I was watching your, well, I know you from years back anyhow, but watching your Instagram live with Steve the other day, and you were talking about some of the names that you've worked with over the years, either directly or indirectly. So kind of give people a background as to where your kind of boxing involvement comes from.
Okay, yeah. So as I said to Steve the other day, boxing was never really, I suppose it was a love, like when most lads are growing up, they watch the boxing, but it was never really something that I was that interested in. I used to watch the big fights, and then I was doing a lot in football journalism, and then through that, I got the opportunity to speak to George Groves at a restaurant, which I thought, as I say,
By accident.
I thought it was a press conference. I thought I was there to take notes in shorthand and then just send them back to the office or type them up. And then, yeah, it was literally, he was buying me food, whatever I wanted on the menu, and to sit down and have lunch with his team. So I had to say early doors, I don't know anything about boxing. I watched your fight, which got knocked out in, but apart from that, that's probably where it ends. But he was a really, really nice guy, and so were his team, to be fair, Paddy Fitzpatrick and Barry O'Connell. And I think because I was quite honest and maybe I was a bit green, they were quite more open than maybe they were with some of the other journos that were looking for that hook or that story, whereas I was just enjoying the food and just hearing how like a fighter prepares. And then we had the open workout, so I went down to his own gym, and I think you both said when you see someone actually hitting pads who can hit pads, I was a bit like, oh my god, these guys are animals. So Barry said, look, come down to mine, meet some of the boxers, and I started interviewing them. So I suppose that's how I got involved in boxing. And then it was only probably 12 months maybe after that, I felt quite seriously because my Crohn's, my stomach split. I had to spend 6 months in hospital. And whilst I was there, as I was saying to Steve, these boxers from Barry's gym were saying, oh, do you fancy doing an interview, etc. My mum was replying on my behalf. And it was something just to keep my mind off the illness, because there was a few stuff that was going on that it then got quite serious. So it was just keeping my mind off it. And I think that was good, because when my parents would come down, they were festering on it all day, whereas I was thinking, okay, how do you make a small hall boxer get into, I don't know, certain publications? So it's good to take my mind off it. And then, yeah, that...
So let's start at that point. Let's start at, how do you get a small hall boxer into certain publications? What's the key?
The key is just to have a line. Everyone's got a story. So we could sit here now, Martin, and we could talk about your background and Steve's. And I also think that everyone has a cross to bear. So everyone, without being too crass, has a bit of a sob story, which... if you want to get people to connect with you, especially in boxing, you've got to use emotion, but you have to use it well and not be the case of some boxers might go off and say, oh, you know, it's a tough business. I'm the one getting in the ring. I'm the one putting my life on the line. Everyone understands that. But there might be something people don't know. I'm not talking about the obvious. You work 2 jobs, you finish your job at 4, and then you're going in the gym by 6. You might do it for loads of other reasons, So you first off have to understand what the story is behind the boxer, and then work that into, okay, how am I going to get the mainstream or a mainstream audience to appreciate that? For example, for Charlie Duffield, it was his brother's suicide and his battle with mental health around that, which captivated. Well, he ended up becoming an ambassador for Calm, which for the level he was at was pretty unheard of.
So, I mean, in terms of working with boxers to not exploit, because exploit's the wrong word, but capitalize, I guess, on those things. In your role, where you were advising them on their social media, getting them interviews and stuff like that, how much of it was driven by you and how much of it is driven by the boxer themselves?
I'd say 95% was probably driven by me.
Okay.
A lot of the time, there were some really good lads, and there was also some people who, I'm sure Steve will know, people like Louis Adolphi, whose talent was incredible, but there was just certain other things away from the ring that maybe held him back. So there was a lot of stuff with Louis. You could have got him into a national paper because we were watching him going to gyms, spar world champions, and give him hell. But the other side to that is he didn't want to do it. He was maybe unavailable for calls at certain times, which just made it very difficult. So he wasn't driving it, so I was. And then you get other boxers who kind of say they want the exposure and want the rise in publicity, but maybe don't want to put in the legwork.
And presumably all of that is then built towards a strategy. And that
Yes.
strategy being get more sponsors, get more followers, ultimately aim to sell more tickets.
Yes. Just looking at Steve's addition to the Zoom call, but
Yeah, he's got a dog with
I've got 6 here at the moment.
Have you?
6 dogs here at the moment, yeah.
But yeah, you are right, Martin. It has to be. I personally think that you have to build locally. So you have to build your fan base, look to local businesses, then build up. Maybe you might get something slightly bigger, maybe a more niche publication might cover you, and then maybe look to go to the nationals. But you get a lot of boxers that just want to be in the back pages of the tabloids, and when you're fighting on a 6 or 4 rounders that they have at York, or 6 rounders, then you're not going to be. That's not going to happen.
But it's better than being on the front page of the tabloids.
Well, true. I reckon some people would probably take that.
Well, that's true. That's true. So did you ever, like, in terms of, I guess you probably can't go into detail, but the metrics by which you would judge yourself and judge the success of how you're working with a boxer, was that around how many tickets additionally they sell before and after working with you, or how many sponsors they get on board, or how many followers they get?
Yeah, I think I would never put numbers, but I would always maybe undersell and say, look, this could help you do this. This could help drive your ticket sales. And then more often than not, I did, unless there was a bizarre reason, or the guy, sometimes you can give them all of the social media backing, all the influencers backing. You can have them doing really good interviews with big outlets. But if they're not willing to help themselves and they're not willing to kind of be a bit conversational or haven't got the best interpersonal skills, then there's not
Flogging
a
a dead horse.
Yeah, there's not a lot. Or even worse, there was one guy, I don't know who he was signed to. He wasn't signed to Steve, like a small hall promoter. And he had told me within 3 years he was going to be a world champion. Now, having not known anything about boxing, I was like, oh, okay. And he said, look, whatever you normally charge, add a couple of zeros onto it. Like, I'm deadly serious. So I was thinking, bloody hell, who's this guy? Well, he sent over a few bits of content that we were going to go through to make a video, and it was quite quick. He realised that this guy he may not even win a pro fight, and I think he lost his second pro fight, and then that was the end of him. But it's that delusion that also holds him back.
Yeah, but I think boxers have to have that to some level, don't they? It's,
some.
Steve, in terms of how it works with you being a boxing manager and you having to manage boxers' careers, you don't necessarily manage their personal life, but when stuff crosses over into interviews and stuff that boxers say, and do you ever have a concern about someone like Jordan? I know Jordan's not doing it now. He's working in far bigger echelons than smaller boxing, and congratulations for that. But Steve, do you ever have like concerns as to what someone might say that ends up in a publication, and then that's all driven by someone like Jordan? You didn't have control over it.
It is an issue, I think. I mean, if I had a boxer under a paid contract, then I would want to have control over that. I think Frank Warren, for example, would have control over his boxers, and that would be part of his contract. I'm not saying that for sure, but I think that would be a wise thing to do. And if he's not doing it, I'd be surprised if he's not doing it. And I think that's of crucial importance. When you're at small hall, you've got to sort of, if a boxer wants to do it, an interview, you've got to be grateful that somebody wants to interview them or do something for them. But there are times when I've had to ring a boxer up and say, get that interview down, get that comment off. I mean, that does happen. And I say,
You rang me once and told me to get an interview down.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I can't remember. You have to remind me. I can't remember, not now, but you have to.
There was a comment by the boxer about a potential opponent that then got back to his trainer and manager and the board. And yeah, you rang me at work, so get that interview.
I mean, yeah, so I'm sort of reactionary. If I think something's going to kick off and there's going to be to somebody's detriment, I will ring them and say, I think it'd be wise to get that thing removed. So, but other than that, I give everybody a free rein. I think again, if a boxer wants me to do it for them, that's fine. But I don't want to be like a dictator to them, because it's hard for them. But yeah, I mean, we're here. We try and do a lot for them anyway, don't we? We try and get their stuff out and try and help them. But I think, it's sort of difficult, because if most people that are covering boxing and are trying at small hall level are doing the best they can do. So I don't really feel that there's anybody there with any ulterior motive. You just got to try and get a boxer to be sensible in the way they communicate. That's all.
Have you ever had any conflicts, Jordan, around your work and a promoter or a manager?
Yeah. Well, Steve was actually one of the nicest blokes. I'd message him and be like, I think when I first started, I sent him a message and said, I just want to make sure you're okay with this. And Steve came back on Facebook, and I can't remember the exact words, but he said, yeah, he was. But there was one guy, I think I might have told you this, Martin, when I was actually in hospital, I had quite a serious health issue that was being looked into. And the day before we found out if it was going one way or the other, I had a boxing promoter / manager call me and say, in no uncertain terms, if I ever message this boxer again, then there'd be serious trouble. The worst thing was I hadn't actually done anything, which I was trying to express to him, but he didn't, and it was all over Facebook, and it just got so messy. But yeah, quite often, I kept trying to say, I'm not a manager. I said, I'm not interested in managing a boxer. I'm just trying to help his PR. But he wasn't having it. He said, my boxers are like my children. So a bit like that David Brent phrase, which I won't, if anyone's going to mess with them, I am. But yeah, I've definitely had that. And I think just some people don't get it. And the higher up you go, or the more professional people you deal with, if you can show a value that you're adding, then they're willing to listen. But if you're just there to kind of be involved in boxing or to make up the numbers in some way, then yeah, you're right to be told, move on.
Yeah, I think you did tell me about it. It was a bit of a loaded question, so I apologise. It was. Do you think it's a sign of, because you now work in football, do you get the same issues there? Is it a sign of insecurities around potentially the fact that it's not regulated particularly well as a sport, boxing? You can get people that come in that aren't managers. Because you just mentioned there, I'm not a manager, I'm not trying to manage, but you can get people come in who don't hold a board license that end up managing boxers that may have started in that position of, I'll just help you out a bit with the social media.
Yeah,
do you get that in football, or is that foreign?
Absolutely nothing. I mean, even in football, I'm dealing with a young player at the minute who's at a top 4 Premier League club. And he's so open, and his agent, they just want to learn, and they're saying, okay, well, for future reference, what should we say? What shouldn't we say? You have to vet the questions and make sure he's not being asked anything that's too inflammatory, or, that his club might be a bit narky about. But yeah, they seem really willing to listen. I had a call with a certain, how's the best word? The second part of a managing duo who may or may not manage a current British heavyweight. So I was talking to a guy who lurks in the shadows, and just even by talking to him, I was thinking, Jesus, this is not a situation that I really want to get involved in, because it was just so messy. And I don't know, as I said, maybe some people want to get involved in boxing because it's boxing. Maybe not everyone is like Steve, and I think certain people are good. Frank Smith, Eddie, I think they're really good. Frank Warren has obviously done very well. But I think, yeah, some managers, I'm not quite sure what they're bringing to the sport. And when you look at their background, I'm not sure that's obvious for anyone.
I think boxing is, as I say, so unregulated that it leaves itself open to abuse in various ways. Steve, I know there are various people that I've seen comments from before that say managers don't do enough to help their boxers. So managers should be doing this. Managers should be doing the PR side, helping them out, getting the interviews, etc., etc. Like, where's a manager's commercial value if it isn't, in getting all of those sponsors and things like that? What would be your kind of counter argument to that?
It's a bit of both. I mean, I think we do help. We produce sponsorship packs. We do this, that, and the other. But if you've got, for example, a small hall boxer and there's no eyes on him, as in television eyes on him, who is going? If we go to a sponsor, let's say I go to a car dealer, and I have got sponsors for some fighters, right? Kay Prosper.
Yep.
Linus Udofia, I've been able to get sponsorship.
Sam Smith,
I've got sponsorship for her. So I have got sponsorship, but on the whole, most sponsors will want to sponsor us, and you need to have a hook between the boxer and the sponsor to make it work. Richie Gray was the prime expert of
Yes.
who goes out and gets sponsors. Now we're able, if they can get a hook with a sponsor, to meet that sponsor and really add value to the sponsorship deal, get more money for them and everything else. But to go around their area to their local car dealers and say, oh, by the way, I manage a local boxer, that's not going to inspire them. They've got to meet the local boxer. The boxer has to do the initial legwork, then we can step in and close the deals. I remember I went down to Brentwood when I had Joe Mullender and we sealed a sponsorship deal for him. I've gone out loads of time to meet various sponsors and sealed the deal. So we do that, and at times we can help sponsors. We can help bring sponsors in for the big fights. But a kid doing a 4-rounder who lives in Kent, for example, we're not going to be able to go to Kent and get him a sponsor. That's just nonsense. Anybody that you can do that maybe by getting some PR going, but they're going to have to do the legwork. Richie Gray set the blueprint for how you get sponsors, and he had more than anybody.
Yeah.
Brad Pauls does a brilliant job of getting sponsors, and I manage the sponsors and help him with the money side once he's got them. But they've got to do the legwork themselves. They have to at that level.
So would you handle and look over the commercial contract side of it when they get the sponsors through?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're not left completely in the dark about it.
No, we do. We look at the if there's one that they've got that, I will do the contract side for them. Make sure that they're tied up and they're not being exploited commercially. So as a manager, we think we do as much as any manager can possibly do. However, when you have a TV fighter, it's different. Then you've got companies that are willing to sponsor, and you can go out and grab them and get them. It's easier, but it's harder at the bottom level while they're just doing their 4 and 6 rounds.
What's the biggest mistake fighters make, Jordan, when they're, the ones that you've taken on before you had an opportunity to work with them, the common issues and mistakes that you'd see?
Oh, common is, I would say, I mean, it's hard to narrow down, but I'd say if there was one, it would be flooding people's feeds, especially Twitter, with outbound messaging. So there'd be a lot of them taking a picture of them running, but there's not a lot of them joining in conversation. If there's like a hub of people, everyone knows there's certain people, especially maybe on your feed, Martin, who go to Steve's shows. There's a hub of people who buy into boxers, who are willing to maybe even just drop them a follow or like or retweet their stuff.
There's probably 150, 200 people that are engaged in it.
Yeah. And they, instead of using it as, so I always say, even now to athletes, Instagram should be your shop window. So you can put your pad workouts. If you want to put up a moody story of you running at 6 a.m. and whatever, iron sharpens iron, you can do that on Instagram. That's your shop window for letting the audience to see what you're getting up to. Obviously, it's better if you've got a bit more nice content, maybe fight highlights or something, but that's what you can do. On Twitter, it should be conversational. It should be fan engagement. It should be looking at joining in conversations. And it's just not. It's always iron sharpens iron, lions hunt together, or whatever
or it's a link. It's just a link to an Instagram. And I think you haven't even bothered to post the video on here. You've just posted a link to your Instagram. I'm not going to click through to that.
Can I say something? I would not be interested in following a boxer because I see them doing pad work, running, sparring, lifting weights. That's what I have no interest. I would, if I was a fan, I'd move on. I want to see a story. I want to get to know that person. I want to understand what they stand for. I want to understand about their life. I'd rather see them sitting at home in their front room talking to their kids and their wife and talking about what they get up to and what the struggle is inside the house or what he does. And I'd rather know about that person. And that's what they don't do enough of.
No,
I agree completely. Like, that's your job. That's literally your job, to go out running, to hit some pads. Like, I wouldn't sit on Twitter and upload videos of me playing about on an Excel spreadsheet and, hashtag it with Excel sharpens Excel. Do you know what I mean? Like, show me the bit that isn't your job, because we all know what you do for a job.
Yeah, I'd fully agree. And I think later down the line, we look to develop 4 pillars. So you have, everyone knows what you do in the ring, but what are your 4 interests outside of it? So for footballers, it might be fashion, it might be religion, it might be esports and gaming. Now, I'm not saying boxers have to have 4, because obviously with lower budget, they might have a lower amount of interest, or they can't go and paint or whatever. But it's just developing that profile, so it's a bit more than just, as Steve said, just people running or in the gym, or the ones about working hard or getting up early. Everyone in the world works hard and gets up early in their own eyes, so it doesn't matter. You
Yeah.
put that on a boxing picture.
Yeah, no, I'd agree entirely. And one thing that was quite common with your boxers you worked with, Jordan, was, I think, to find that crossover element between boxing and football. If there's a natural crossover, try and use that.
Oh, 100. At small hall, Steve might disagree, but at small hall level, I think it's about, you've got to get the easy wins. You've got to have the tap-ins. And if you're like Mark Little, when Mark Little fights, if he times it right, he can be getting 300 engagements on a moody picture of him in the gym, just because these fans are so emotionally invested.
Mhm.
But the other side is that they're used to spending money. They're used to going to live sporting events and paying out £40.
Yeah.
So it's easy to get them to it. They could knock the head on one away game, say, and come and watch Mark with however many other West Ham fans. I think there's a lot of easy wins that boxers could take. That the football one was one that I exploit every time.
I know a boxer that's hooked up with a football team, has been on pitches, he doesn't even support them, but they all believe he does, and they all follow him. So, full credit to him. There's nothing wrong with that. He's got a new team, but the football thing is the best way you can start to attract support and loyal support, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Especially you're a small hall guy who, in the nicest way possible, may not be the most naturally gifted. So if you're a bit of a grit, determination, and they're buying into that, yeah, West Ham fans, they love that. A bit of one of us, and he's just in the ring. Yeah, they have to exploit it. As I say, there's a lot of easy wins that I think boxers could do, but for one reason or another, maybe it's their ego, or they feel like they have the audience already, that they just don't.
I think sometimes some of the boxers feel they're bigger star. It sounds awful, but not all of them, because I wouldn't say this applies to any of my boxers, but some boxers think they're bigger stars than they are, and they're bigger in the sport than they are, just because they're a professional boxer, and they behave like that accordingly. They think that the world owes them a living, and it doesn't work like that. And again, it can also be caused, some of this attitude, by the manager. Well, the manager would probably be spouting a load of bullshit to them when he signs them, to get them to sign on the dotted line, promising them the world, telling them how they are entitled to this, and this. Then they turn over and it doesn't happen. And that can actually have a detrimental effect if the manager's not been real at the start when he signed them.
Yeah. Yeah. Jordan, before we sign off, what do you reckon, from what you've seen out of football and how it works there, what's the kind of biggest takeaway that boxing could learn from how it works in football?
Oh, I wouldn't like to speak on anything that I'm not too knowledgeable about, or maybe like the intricacies of different finances or something. But I think definitely from a boxers and footballers, from an athlete-only point of view. In fact, I said this on my Twitter the other day, so I'll repeat this and then maybe I'll try and think of another one. I'm really surprised that more boxers, especially locally, don't get involved with more charities. I cannot fathom why they don't. It gives you such good press. Immediately you'll get a local write-up. You can lean on the charity's PR to kind of do your own releases if you got in that way. And it looks good, and you can actually it gives you a voice. It gives you more than just having the boxing pictures going up and something. It makes you stand for something. I don't understand why boxers don't do that. But if you were to ask a footballer, well, as I was saying to Steve the other day, we got loads of our young players doing stuff during lockdown, and they're all happy to do it. So maybe it's a case of boxers aren't able to think like that, maybe not think outside the box a bit. But hopefully that will come. But yeah, I just think that boxers I'd love to see a bit more fan engagement, a bit more giving back. You can't keep asking people for £40.
I always think the one that surprises me is that you don't see more boxers getting involved in just local events, like a summer fair at a school or anything like that, where you can go along and say you've got 200 people to come through the gate that day at a school summer fair. 50% by rights will be boys, 50% girls. Not to say the girls can't get involved in it, but more likely at a younger age, boys will show an interest in it. And then you've got their parents that are there. Now, if you're doing some pad workout, you can start talking to the parents at a very localized level, and you can maybe come away with 50, 100 people that now know your name and show an interest and know there's a local boxer that lives within the neighbourhood. and then you can start building from that level rather than trying to build nationally downwards. Build locally upwards.
Yeah, I think that's yeah. I really don't understand why locals, especially local papers, they're crying out for content. I don't understand why. I mean, there used to be an old easy win, which was like I used to contact papers and say, "Oh, so and so will write a column for you. He's a 10-0 undefeated professional boxer." And they're even just saying undefeated professional boxer. Most people would be like, "Oh wow, he must be decent," without even seeing any of his fights.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why, for some reason, local audiences are abandoned. But as Steve said the other day, his two lads, Linus and Brad Pauls, they seem to be doing it right. And I think both of them are doing really well in building their own profiles.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Should we leave it there, gents? I think we've probably covered as many bits of PR and social media as people would care to know about.